Commanding the Tide, a Warhammer 40k story of the Obsidian Spears. The rain fell in a warm torrent, thick as steam and twice as suffocating. Red clay turned to sucking sludge beneath the boots of the 108th Reichen Line Infantry, pooled in the craters left by Chaos Artillery, and slicked the flanks of the shattered Valkyrie that marked their temporary regroup point. The air stank of rot, burnt promethium, and wet jungle. They had survived the attack barely. A sheer wave of chaos-worshipping insurgents, once Imperial humans twisted by their heresies, had struck the theta line with mortars and flesh-crafted weapons. Now the guns were silent. The jungle was not. Commissar Lorkin trudged across the mire, one hand holding his soaked greatcoat clear of the filth, the other clenched around a data slate marked with the seal of the Segmentum Command. His voice cracked like a whip. "This is insubordination, plain and simple." He didn't bother looking at Lieutenant Keren, who stood quietly beside him, helmet under one arm and the weight of exhaustion carved deep into his face. "They were attached to our sector push," Lorkin said. "Command made that clear in the writ. Integrated operational coordination for joint cleansing of Sector Juno Theta. That places them under the jurisdiction of the sector commander. That is me." Keren nodded faintly but didn't speak. He knew the writ. It had been issued weeks earlier, an emergency deployment order placing a small strike force of Obsidian Spears alongside the 108th to root out chaos elements hiding in the flooded jungles of Zavavi. But the Astartes hadn't waited for orders. They had vanished beneath the trees the moment the boots hit mud. Keren couldn't help but remember how efficiently they had moved, as if the jungle were an ally, not a burden. Despite Lorkin's outrage, part of him knew the truth. The theta line still held because of the spears. Lorkin's lip curled. "We were promised angels of death. Instead we get feral divers and stone-faced mystics who chant at the sea." He motioned toward the crates near the drop point. Bone charms, shell discs, and bundles of carved driftwood bound with fiber cords. Ritual fetishes. Markings from the Obsidian Spears Chapter, placed in a pattern Keren had overheard the Astartes call a navigation ward. It meant something to them. To Lorkin it was heresy dressed in salt water. He sneered. "They need reminding that they are Imperial servants," he muttered, "not demigods." Behind him the guardsmen were silent, but their silence was thick with tension. Not amusement this time, unease. The jungle seemed to press closer. Even the rain felt heavier. Keren said nothing, but his throat was dry. "They're here," someone said. Lorkin turned and the camp fell into an unnatural hush. 7 giants emerged from the jungle. Their armor was matte black, scarred with salt and scrimshawed detail, crusted in places with coral and etched with curling lines like stylized waves. Barnacles clung to vambraces and knees. Some bore knives shaped like ancient hooks, others carried bolters strung with cord and teeth. At their head walked Vaikato. No rank badge, no helmet, only a single long ritual blade strapped to his back and a bolt pistol with an inlaid grip. His expression was unreadable, face marked with white ink in interlocking tidal motifs. He said nothing, but his black eyes settled on Lorkin. The rain seemed to soften for a heartbeat, as if the jungle itself was holding its breath. Lorkin stepped forward, boots slurping in the mire, and raised his voice to be heard over the hiss of rain. "You are senior among them." Vaikato stared at him. "I am Commissar Lorkin, per Segmentum Command Writ 79 Theta. This sector is under my operational authority. I ordered your strike unit to reinforce the Theta line. You vanished. I demand an explanation." "No answer." Lorkin's voice rose, almost triumphant, as he held up the slate. "You were attached to our battalion. This is not a hunting preserve for your chapter's superstitions. You will comply with the chain of command." Stillness. And then movement. In a sudden, almost blurred motion, Vaikato drew his blade and drove it into the mud between Lorkin's boots with a low chunk. The force made the ground tremble. The blade hummed faintly with restrained violence. Lorkin stiffened. Rain streamed down his face. His hand twitched toward his bolt pistol, then froze as Vaikato slowly stepped forward, towering. "We entered through the sinkhole," the Astartes said, voice low and firm. 3 kilometers east, the enemy had mortars. We came from beneath, killed them before they could fire. Lorkin faltered. That is not the point. Your method. Vicato stepped closer again. His voice did not rise, but it gained weight. You ask us to march through kill zones because your maps do not show the earth below, because you do not see the sea beneath the soil. You ask warriors to be parade officers. He raised 2 fingers, placed them against the commissar's chest and lightly for him pushed. Lorkin staggered back into deeper mud with a sharp squelch. His pristine boot disappeared, and a streak of filth slashed across his coat. The pause was electric. But this time the guardsman didn't laugh. Private Rennick had gone pale. Sergeant Halvers nodded once to Karen, small, grim. Even the Vox operator looked down as if avoiding a dangerous current. Karen felt it too. The smell of ozone and wet earth. A pressure in the air like the moment before a wave breaks. Lorkin didn't see it. He straightened, chest heaving, face flushed with fury. Vicato turned away. The theta line holds, he said without looking back. You are welcome. He and his brothers melted into the mist again, moving with silence and purpose only Astartes possessed. Lorkin stood alone, mud-soaked, jaw tight. He stared down at the embedded blade for a long moment before finally stepping back, wordless. Behind him, the jungle whispered. 2 days later, the jungle boiled with smoke and the thunder of orbital strikes. The Obsidian Spears had raised 3 chaos shrines hidden in the swamps east of the theta line. No guardsman had seen the assaults happen, only the aftermath, fields of charred corpses, twisted symbols carved into the ground burned clean, and bolt casings the size of ration tins scattered among broken idols. Still, Lorkin tried again. The command tent, barely a hab structure of plastic and tarp, rippled under storm winds. Rain hammered the roof like 1,000 beating drums. Inside, the glow of a hollow map pulsed over muddy Vox units and half-empty medkits, casting the room in dim, flickering blue. Lorkin stood over the display, shoulders hunched, tapping a blinking sector overlay with increasing urgency. This is where they're going next. Look, their course bypasses the eastern trenches entirely. I won't permit it. They've already gone, Karen said quietly. By now they're halfway to whatever they found in the mire. I don't care, Lorkin snapped, the words too loud in the tight space. This operation is under my jurisdiction. I have the writ. He slapped the data slate down onto the console again, harder this time. They are here under Imperial command structure. If they defy that, they defy the throne. Karen remained still, silent. For a moment only the storm answered. Then the tent flap stirred as 2 Obsidian Spears entered without ceremony. The first was Vicato, calm, impassive, rain dripping from the rim of his shoulder guard. The second was a broader warrior, heavier with years and bearing. His lacquered pauldrons bore etched kill tallies, and a crude chain of teeth hung from his belt like war trophies. His exposed face looked chiseled from volcanic rock, eyes like storm glass. They didn't speak. Lorkin straightened, collecting his composure in the shape of a glare. I will have an explanation for your movements. The older Astartes regarded him as one might regard a barking dog, an interruption, not a threat. You do not give us orders, the veteran said, voice deep and weathered. I am the sector commander. No, Vicato said. The word was quiet, cold, measured. You are a commissar. You speak for morale, not for war. The veteran moved to the table, unrolling a damp parchment map with deliberate slowness. There are deeper nests in the east, he said to Vicato, ignoring Lorkin. The swamp line breathes the warp. They left bones in the trees. Lorkin's jaw clenched. He stepped forward. You will not ignore me. If you refuse another direct order, I will file formal charges of insubordination, dereliction, and heresy under... He reached for his bolt pistol. The movement was instinctive, automatic, not even full, but it was enough. In less than a breath, Vicato crossed the distance. 1 step, then 2, then the crash of motion. Lorkin was on his knees. A massive ceramite gauntlet pressed against his chest plate, not hard enough to break, but firm enough to halt breath. The pistol hung loose in its holster, untouched. Rain dripped from Vicato's vambrace, mingling with the mud collecting in the tent's seams. "Threaten us again," Vicato said, voice quiet but terrible, "and you will return to Segmentum Command in a crate sealed with salt." Lorkin didn't answer. He couldn't. The moment hung weighty as judgment. Then Vicato withdrew his hand and stepped back. Lorkin slumped to the floor, gasping in a puddle of muck and shame. The veteran gave Karen a single nod. "Your soldiers fought well. Hold your line." Both Astartes turned without another word and vanished through the curtain of rain, their black armor melting into the haze like leviathans returning to the deep. By dawn, Sector Theta had fallen silent. The last of the Chaos forces lay dead in their trenches, their shrines shattered and their bunkers drowned. The Obsidian Spears had struck in the night, unseen, and when the 108th Rican line advanced at first light, they found only ruin. Bodies torn apart, drowned in their own defensive pits, and the enemy's last mound pulped to slag and ash. The spear's banner, carved from reef bone and black stone, stood planted in the center, rain streaming from its jagged edge. By midday, the Vox from Segmentum Command arrived. Operational success confirmed. Astartes actions authorized under remit. Writ 79 Theta rescinded. Sector Command transferred to Astartes Kill Command Authority. Commissar Lorkin stood stiff as a post when he heard it. Rain sluiced from his greatcoat in heavy sheets, his fists clenched until the knuckles whitened. "This is sedition," he whispered. No one answered. That night, during the second wave of rain, he went to the forward post. It was little more than a clearing of crates and canvas where the spears rested, their black armor slick with water and streaked with red mud. They sat in a ring, silent, tending to their weapons. Their rituals had no chant, no ceremony, only the scrape of stone on blade, the soft rasp of coral brushes cleaning bolter vents, and the brittle crunch of ration crackers, each gnawed through with grim determination, as if the entire squad was locked in an unspoken cracker challenge no one intended to lose. Vicato sat cross-legged, wiping his ritual hook blade clean. Lorkin approached, boots sucking at the mud, and drew his bolt pistol. His face was pale, sickly in the low light, eyes raw with fury and exhaustion. "You think this is over?" he rasped. "You break command, you mock law, and think your size makes you untouchable. I should execute you, right here, right now." Vicato looked up at him, slow and calm. Lorkin's pistol hand trembled. His finger curled around the trigger. Before he could fire, the nearest spear moved. A black gauntlet clamped around Lorkin's wrist and twisted. Bone snapped with a wet pop. Lorkin gasped, stumbled sideways, and another Astartes stepped in as fast as a striking eel. A flat blow to the side of the head, precise and heavy as a hammer. His skull cracked audibly. He fell at their feet like a puppet that had its strings cut. The pistol vanished into one of the spear's pouches without a word. Lorkin twitched once, then stilled. Blood spread in the rainwater. No one spoke. Vicato wiped the last fleck of gore from his blade and resumed his task as though nothing had happened. The ring of giants closed around the fallen commissar in a silence deeper than the jungle night. Vicato rose, towering over the broken form of Lorkin. He looked down, not with anger, not with triumph, but with the grim, distant weight of something ancient and inevitable, like the slow pull of the tide. No one spoke. Not the spears, not the few nearby guardsmen who had witnessed the confrontation from the perimeter, too afraid to intervene. Lieutenant Karen was one of them, standing back, felt a sickness coil in his gut. He had known this was coming. The moment Lorkin had drawn on them, his fate was sealed, not by law, but by the raw, brutal truth of the war they fought here. Chain of command meant little to the Obsidian Spears. Survival, victory, and the destruction of the enemy, that was their law. Vicato's voice came at last, soft as a wave breaking against a reef. Chain of command ends where chains drown. He looked up at Karen, meeting his gaze across the space where Lorkin's body lay still and leaking into the mud. "You will hold the line," Vicato said, low and firm. "You will keep your soldiers alive. This sector is cleansed. There will be no more shrines here, no more filth rising from the mire." Karen swallowed, throat raw. He nodded. Vicato's eyes lingered on him for a breath longer, then he turned away. The circle of spears broke apart like a shoal dispersing into deeper waters. One of them stooped, lifted Lorkin's body without ceremony, and carried him away into the shadows beyond the firelight, toward the river, Karen realized with a cold shudder. By morning, the Commissar was gone. No body, no marker, just empty mud where the rain had washed away the blood. Sector Theta was quiet, the jungle no longer whispered, and in the new silence, Karen understood what had shifted. The spears had taken command, not by writ nor by rank, but by sheer undeniable force. By killing the enemy where no others could, by enforcing their own grim code where the Imperium's edicts failed to reach. Lorkin had tried to command the tide and had drowned in the mud of Zavavi, and something older, deeper, had risen in their place. Karen looked east, where the jungle still steamed and the rain fell heavy as ever, and he held the line. Don't forget to comment, like and subscribe if you have enjoyed this tale.